got trouble.
We got trouble.
How much trouble?
Too much trouble.
This is We the People with Forrest Wilson. And now, here is Forrest Wilson.
And welcome to The Resistance. I'm your host, Forrest Wilson. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to leave your address with Jack, and we'll send you the booklet titled Dynamic Freedoms, our freedom documents, courtesy of We the People 1787. It contains many of our founding documents, including the Declaration of Independence, Patrick Henry's speech, the call to arms, which ends with "Give me liberty or give me death." It also has excerpts from George Washington's farewell address and the Constitution. And these documents are arguably the finest collection of freedom documents ever assembled, and we'll send the book to you. Just leave your address with Jack. And the lines are open, 904-222-TALK, 904-222-TALK. And boy, do we have trouble. Many of you have asked about the opening song, Knock on Wood. And it's from the classic movie Casablanca, and is sung by the incomparable Arthur Dooley Wilson, an African-American actor and singer. Great movie. I recommend that movie highly. Last Friday, the Christian Science Monitor, Dan Pfeiffer, a senior Obama advisor, was quoted saying, "President Obama will go ahead with a very significant executive action on immigration after the summer, a move that may well trigger impeachment proceedings against him." And I'm trying to get a clip up here for you. Give me just a second and we'll get the clip.
Because we don't have enough resources, we've already been very clear, we run out of money. And we are going to have to reallocate resources in order to just make sure that some of the basic functions that have to take place down there, whether it's making sure that these children are properly housed or making sure that we've got enough immigration judges to process their cases, that those things get done. We're going to have to reallocate some resources.
Act alone because we don't have enough resources. You mean taxpayer dollars? What about your constitutional duty to faithfully execute the law of the land? What the hell does that have to do with resources? And Dan Pfeiffer, the Democrat moron minion of Obama, touting and inviting impeachment? Why? Why would Democrats talk impeachment? Republicans are suing the president, not impeaching, not yet. But when Democrats say the I word, it's great for fundraising, isn't it? And getting out the vote. And they're going to need it. The federal government has done an abysmal job since the president's election in 2008. Right now, there are 36 U.S. Senate seats up for election in 2014. Of those seats, 15 are currently held by Republicans and 21 held by Democrats. So one of the contingency plans for the Dems is for Obama to act unilaterally without Congress giving some sort of amnesty to the millions of illegals in this country now, possibly at the end of the summer, maybe during the recess. This draws fire from Republicans and possibly bringing articles of impeachment in the House. Obama raises cash to defend and fund the Democrats holding the Senate. And what about the amnesty enacted by some executive order by Obama? There'll be more chaos at the border in the 4 border states in the country. As twisted as it sounds, the Dems may be onto something. I mean, it's a brilliant strategy, albeit unconstitutional, to offer amnesty through executive order and then claim the Republicans plan to impeach, raise cash, and encourage the morons to vote in the midterms to save the presidency. It's a gamble. And if he holds the Senate, expect more executive orders and more chaos. Just look at the use of children, women and children in all of these political struggles. You have Obama artfully using illegal women and children as the excuse to force immigration reform, not stopping the invasion, but increasing the velocity of the invasion. Now you have Hamas artfully using women and children as the excuse to garner support because Israeli attacks are killing women and children that they put in harm's way. Not stopping the attacks on Israel, not stopping the war, but increasing the chaos in the Middle East. Both Hamas and this administration, if you can call it an administration, are using women and children to force their agenda on free people. And you know what? I'm sick. I'm just sick by the deceptive practices of these democratically elected regimes. Do you believe that any attempt to impeach the president will have a chance prior to these midterm elections? I believe we'll have a repeat of the Clinton impeachment, where Clinton was impeached in the House, not in the Senate. It was under Democrat control. But impeachment proceedings prior to the midterms, or talk of impeachment, will bring out the minions and morons who will vote for Dems and possibly help hold the Senate. But these Democrats, they're a bunch of lazy liars and will stop at nothing to grow this government.
Here we have a majority in the House, I speak to the House, that is anti-governance, anti-science, and anti-Barack Obama. And so that gives them a comfort level to do nothing. As I've said to you before, nothing is our agenda and never is our timetable, Mr. President.
Did she say anti-science? This fool is a domestic enemy. The only group in Washington that is anti-governance is your group, Nancy Pelosi. The Democrats are anti-governance with their complete disregard of the Constitution. The Constitution is the governance document, and you, this administration, and all of the Democrats and many Republicans are destroying it. Now, this is reported in the Washington Times on Friday. Massachusetts lawmakers sent a bill to Governor Deval Patrick's desk for passage that puts police chiefs in charge of deciding whether or not a person is fit enough to own a gun, and gives them the power to deny purchases in certain cases. Deval Patrick is a Democrat. We seek not to be the safest state in the nation, but strive to make our communities the safest in the world, said House Speaker Robert DeLeo, as Reuters reported. Mr. Patrick supports the measure and is expected to sign it into law soon. Critics say the new authority for police holds potential to become a Second Amendment nightmare. It broadens existing state law, which already allows law enforcement to deny handgun buys by those who fail background checks, and lets the chief of police take 90 days to petition a court to approve the denial of a firearms identification card to those deemed unfit. This is an egregious violation of your Second Amendment rights, the National Rifle Association said in a statement, as Reuters reported. You know, I can't imagine a situation where a citizen would be denied the legal purchase of a gun because they're deemed unfit. What type of regulations deem a person unfit to own a firearm? Well, certainly if they're a felon, that would make them unfit. But what if they're just opposition, or they don't like the government, or they're not a Democrat? My next guest is attempting to circumvent unconstitutional acts by asking those charged with enforcement of laws like these to stand down and not enforce laws which violate the constitutional oath of office. In general, the oath reads like this. It's in Title V, Section 3331 of the United States Code. I do so solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter, so help me God. Boy, I tell you, that sounds like a lot of people are violating their oath. Oath Keepers is a group that attempts to get law enforcement involved, as well as firefighters and the military, to encourage any unconstitutional acts handed down by leaders, either in military, police, fire, or elected representatives, to not follow unconstitutional demands. It's a nonpartisan association of current and formerly serving military, reserves, National Guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath that I just gave to you, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Their motto is not on our watch. I want to bring in the North Florida representative of Oath Keepers, Mr. Bob Wolf. Bob, how are you?
Hey, I'm just fine, Forrest. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, I could identify many domestic enemies of the Constitution. How does your organization hope to stop these domestic enemies?
Well, it starts with just the lower echelon person out on the street, like the police or the sheriff's deputy, those that are in active military that are, let's say, not an officer, maybe a non-commissioned officer, like a sergeant, or maybe just private. These folks are ordered ever to check out or to do a job, and that job requires them to break their oath by way of going against a constitutional amendment, like any of the first 10 amendments. If it requires them to break their oath and do that, then they should. What we want them to do is we want them to respectfully decline any order that goes against their constitutional rights of the people. And I want to mention, while I'm saying constitutional rights and taking the oath, that most people have taken the oath already. They may not always remember that they took the oath, but many people have taken that oath when they got a driver's license or when they got a voting card. And then a lot of people got them when they went into a public office of some kind, or they became, a law enforcement officer, or in the military, of course. And I just want people to remember that that all of us took that oath. And it's not that you have a right to decline a order that is unconstitutional and therefore unlawful. You have a duty. You have a duty to decline that order. And as American citizens that are not involved in law enforcement, they're not in the military, active or retired, I want to tell you that you have a duty to stand up for your country and do it as quickly as you can. If you don't join up with Oath Keepers, join some organization that is a constitutional organization that believes in nonviolence, like Oath Keepers believes in nonviolence. We are not a militia. We're not a group that is training militias. We may involve training for people that would involve maybe helping them to do the things that they would do to pass a test for carrying concealed, for instance. So we might help with that, but those would be certified trainers that would do that training.
Well, Bob, what I want to do, I've got to take a break, but when we come back from the break, I want to talk about the size and scope of your organization, how people can get in touch with it, and some of the other various aspects of what's going on today. You're listening to The Resistance, AM 600. We're talking to Bob Wolf of Oath Keepers, the Northeast Florida director of Oath Keepers. We'll be right back.
Once again, here is Forrest.
And we're back. My guest today is Bob Wolf, Northeast Florida Director of Oath Keepers. And Bob, I want to try to get some idea of the size and scope of Oath Keepers.
Okay. Well, before I answer that question, let me just say this, because I want to make sure that those that are listening understand. In order to be an Oath Keeper, the first thing that you want to do is take the oath. Many already have. But aside from that, you don't have to be former military or former law enforcement to be an Oath Keeper in our organization. You can just be a concerned citizen. So I wanted to make sure that people knew that. You can come into Oath Keepers just so long as you understand that we do take our Constitution very seriously. That is the contract between the federal government and the people to protect the people's rights. That and the Bill of Rights. So anyway, if you don't respect those things, then you probably don't want to be an Oath Keeper. The size and the scope of Oath Keepers is a national organization. I understand that a lot of people have thrown around a lot of numbers about what the size of our Oath Keeper organization is. I wish I could tell you for sure that it is 1 million people, but I'm not so sure that it is that big. I think it may be only around 100,000 or so. But Oath Keepers is not a very old organization. We've only been around just a little over 5 years, and we're really digging in now. And we've started chapters all over the United States in various parts, and we also have chapters started all over the state of Florida. Right now, we got about 15 chapters going. So we have, in each one of those chapters, we have a chapter leader. And my job, here's what my job is, to help to train those chapter leaders so that they can help the people that join into their chapters. And what we're wanting to do beside make our law enforcement and military officers that are on active duty now, we are decided having them remember the oath that they took. Sorry about getting messed up there, but I'm driving. Anyway, beside that, we want people to be trained for any event that could occur either in their area of Florida or maybe statewide or maybe even a national event that occurs that would be something that would be, let's say, a calamity that happens, maybe mass flooding or a big hurricane wind or something like, that hit over in New Orleans, that type of thing. Or it could be an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, that would knock out our electric lines and our electric companies and keep them out of business for maybe weeks or months at a time. So people would have to know some skills in order to be able to successfully survive events like that, because I'm not seeing our government step in with assets and resources that would feed and take care of hundreds of thousands of people in a large event, or maybe millions of people in the event that something. I don't see the federal government able to step in and take care of those things. Now, they might say they would, but wouldn't you rather be self-sufficient? Would you rather be able to take care of yourself? And that's where we're at with that.
Well, you've got a lot of critics. One of them is the Southern Poverty Law Center, and it lists your group as an active patriot group. Now, they also list other groups. I'm going to give you a couple of them. The John Birch Society is listed as an active patriot group. World Net Daily, Joseph Farah, American Policy Center, and others. But the definition is interesting. It says generally patriot groups define themselves as opposed to the New World Order, engage in groundless conspiracy theorizing, or advocate or adhere to extreme anti-government doctrines. I just don't see standing up for the Constitution and trying to get people to uphold their constitutional oath as being some sort of anti-government doctrine. I think it's a key part of our government. My goodness, if somebody doesn't stand up for the Constitution, we won't have a government, because that is the structure of the entire federal system, at least originally.
Right. Well, and also, what's wrong with some sort of a catastrophe in your area? What's wrong with that? Law against helping your neighbor to prepare himself. Let's be real. I don't think there should be.
Bob, you're breaking up bad. I wonder if you could pull over so we can finish our interview. This is a very important topic.
How's that? Is that any better?
That's better. Take yourself off the road if you can.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to do that. What I'm saying to you is I don't think there should be any laws against helping your neighbor to be self-sufficient in the event that there is sort of catastrophe that in him, his family, or neighbors, friends, or maybe his entire community. I don't see anything wrong with that. government organization, regardless of what some of those wild websites are saying out there. We are the government. We're not preparing to have war with them. Some of the website stuff that I have read out there, like the Southern Poverty Law Center and all that sort of thing, some of that stuff is nothing but pure lies. It's just not the truth at all.
Well, now, Stuart Rhodes, he's the constitutional lawyer who set this structure up of Oath Keepers. He makes mention of an unconstitutional act during Katrina, where all of the people involved in New Orleans and the various parishes that were affected by Katrina, their guns were seized. And this literally happened in 2005. I mean, a lot of people can't imagine a scenario where the government would literally seize all weapons, especially due to something like bad weather. I want you to comment on that. We've got to take a break here in just a minute, but I want you to comment on that after the break, because this is something that literally could happen in any community where there's a potential, bad weather, a catastrophe, an EMP pulse. And I believe some of these things have some legs. Look, we've got an invasion going on the southern border, and I believe that there are some bad actors coming to this country right now. But, Bob, let me hold you over through this break, and we'll get right back to it. You're listening to AM 600, The Resistance, Forrest Wilson. I'm talking to Bob Wolf of Oath Keepers. I hope you'll stay tuned.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
And we're back. I'm talking with Bob Wolf of Oath Keepers. And Bob, one of the interesting things about your organization is they hope to thwart unconstitutional acts such as the gun grabbers, which collected up all the guns after Katrina. Are there other examples of your group thwarting unconstitutional acts, or are there any examples thus far?
Well, I haven't been involved in any examples myself of thwarting unconstitutional acts, but let's see, in a situation where we had many Oath Keepers that were participating in something. But, we're not known for going out and standing in the street or on street corners with big signs. We're not known for that. But there have been Oath Keepers that have done that. Stood on a bridge, for instance, and maybe had a sign wanted to say. You can't hold back somebody's First Amendment rights to speak freely and say what they want to say. As far as Hurricane Katrina, it is a fact that their local governments issued orders to go in and take away the weapons that any homeowner may have had to protect themselves. And in one case, I saw a video of an old lady. She was probably about 75 years old. She had a little old pistol that was a revolver, and I think she had it unloaded, to be honest with you. It open so that they could see that. And they actually put her to the floor in the house and to get this weapon away from that little old lady. They put her to the floor. And this is just not only unnecessary, but it is, to me, it looks like a flagrant violation of a person's Second Amendment rights. And yes, there are people out there that want to undo the Second Amendment rights. They think that if you just take all the people's guns away from them, then there's going to be peace, and nobody's going to be shooting anybody.
Well, the excuse that Ray Nagin and the officials in New Orleans at the time gave was they wanted to stop the looting in the various parishes. Well, I can't think of a better way to stop looting than a property owner to stand up, even a 75-year-old lady with her revolver, and stop that looting dead in its tracks.
Oh, I understand that just a few days after that, her without a weapon, that her home was overrun by looters. So they took what they wanted. She didn't have any way of protecting herself. Now, I don't know if that's a fact, but that is what I've heard. And I can see where if you don't have a weapon, you don't have any way of protecting yourself against somebody that would do you harm.
Well, yes, an armed man or woman is a citizen. An unarmed man or woman is a victim. How does we broadcast to a lot of military in this particular broadcast area? How do people get in touch with Oath Keepers?
Well, probably the quickest way to get a hold of a person is just to go onto the Florida website, which is Florida Oathkeepers with an S .org, O-R-G, FloridaOathkeepers.org. And if they go on that website, they can look up. I know that this broadcast that you're doing can be picked up on the internet from any place. It could be in California, but it doesn't matter. You can go on FloridaOathkeepers.org, or you can go on the national website if you're out of Florida, which is Oathkeepers.org. That site, and you can find the place nearest to where you live at. You can find a director or a chapter leader in that area, and you'll see a phone number for them or an email address, and you can contact them.
And is there a cost associated with joining?
If you want to become a full-fledged Oath Keeper member, it's $40 a year.
And do you have to be prior military or current active military or firefighter or one of the police forces?
You can just be an associate member of Oath Keepers, and as far as I know, you can take part in, as far as I'm concerned, you can take part in any of the things that we are doing as Oath Keepers, and so you can be an associate member and not have to pay $40 a year. However, I think that it might be, if you are going to an organization and taking part in what they do, I think it's a good thing to benefit them by way of donating money to that organization, whether you donate it or you give them a $40 a year fee for membership. And as far as what was that question? The second question you said?
Well, you've got two levels of membership, and what I wanted to know is the full membership. You actually have to have been involved in the armed services or police, correct?
No, you don't. You can join Oath Keepers. You can be a full-fledged member. You do not have to be prior military. You can just be a concerned citizen. You can be 80 years old, or you can be 40 years old, or you can be 25. It makes no difference.
Do you have any active members of Congress or the Senate involved?
I don't want to try to answer that question. I don't have firsthand knowledge of it, so I don't.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't expect any of them to be involved. Otherwise, how can you justify what's going on today with the activities in the House of Representatives and the Senate? I mean, it's terrible. They've got a 7% approval rating for a reason. So I wouldn't guess any of them are part of your membership.
Well, that's right, and and I know we are getting enough of the news. Not that we always get truthful news, but we get enough of the news to know that there is a gridlock situation of some kind in Washington. We know that there are bills that are passed through the House and they're sent to the Senate, and there are hundreds of bills lying on the desk right now that don't get a chance to go out and get signed by the president. He's not going to present them before Senate.
Well, they're blocking them. Nancy Pelosi says the House is doing nothing, but I understand there's about 300 bills on Harry Reid's desk, and no action on those bills whatsoever.
That's an example of what I'm telling you. One of the things I didn't mention to you is that we're a nonpartisan organization, or nonprofit, and that's, we're not being funded by the government. We're not being, funded other than by individuals who either donate something or pay a yearly fee. So, but you can be any ethnicity. You can be of any political background. If you believe the same thing that we believe, you're going to be right at home.
Now, as a final question, there was an incident with the Bureau of Land Management out there with Cliven Bundy. Were any of your folks involved in that dust-up?
Well, there were Oath Keepers out there, and a few of them. if I remember correctly, there was at least a couple of hundred Oath Keepers out there. But their job out there was to kind of be a liaison between anyone who might seek to harm the Bundys, and they were also eyes and ears on the perimeter of the ranch. But things got dangerous for the Oath Keepers. There were militia people out there with guns that didn't know how to handle themselves. And Stuart Rhodes, who was out there, pulled the Oath Keepers back and said, let's go home. So they did that.
Well, Bob Wolf, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. One more time, how do folks get in touch with Oath Keepers if they find that this is an organization that they want to get involved in?
Well, it's FloridaOathKeepers.org. You can also go to the website for your We the People 1787.org. You can go there. You can pick up this recorded show, and when you do that, it won't be on there until about Tuesday. But when it does come on there, you're going to be able to get the information right off of the audio video that's there as well.
Well, Bob, thank you for your time today. Bob Wolf, the director of the Oath Keepers here in Northeast Florida. I want to thank you again for your time, Bob. I saw a interview with Bill O'Reilly. I was talking to Stuart Rhodes several years ago when Oath Keepers really got started. And he was actually interviewed by O'Reilly and then by Chris Matthews on MSNBC. But neither of those men really understood the mission of Oath Keepers or what they were attempting to do by encouraging those in the military, the police, and firefighters not to carry out unconstitutional acts as handed down by their leadership or possible political types. Interesting group, interesting mission, and I like the fact that the Southern Poverty Law Center doesn't like them. I'm going to take a break. You're listening to The Resistance with Forrest Wilson, AM 600.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
And we're back, AM 600, The Resistance. Lines are open, 904-222-TALK, 904-222-8255. So we've got this invasion going on, and apparently no legislation that'll pass. And this just in from Fox News. The House late Friday revived and approved a Republican-authored border crisis bill after GOP leaders hurriedly resolved an internal battle that scuttled the vote a day earlier. But with the Senate on recess and the House soon to follow, there's little chance of any bill reaching the president's desk until the fall. The House legislation was approved on a 223 to 189 vote. The new version of the bill adds additional funding for the National Guard and includes policy changes meant to speed deportations of illegal immigrant children surging across the southern border. So the invasion is going to continue, and this article makes no mention of the real threat to our sovereignty, terrorism. We know we're being infiltrated. They're finding Qurans, prayer rugs, and capturing special interest aliens, in other words, men from the Middle East.
I'm going to have to act alone because we don't have enough resources. We've already been very clear. We run out of money. And we are going to have to reallocate resources in order to just make sure that some of the basic functions that have to take place down there, whether it's making sure that these children are properly housed or making sure that we've got enough immigration judges to process their cases, that those things get done. We're going to have to reallocate some resources.
That or an executive order. I mean, in other words, let's keep the invasion going. Let's crash the sovereignty of the United States of America. This is community organizing on steroids. And for what? The possibility of millions of new Democrat supporters? What are you going to say to the victims of the next smoking city, Mr. President? What are you going to say to the victims of the next smoking city, all you Democrats and some Republicans? We have to throw as many of these bums out in the next election as possible. Right here in North Florida are two who need to go, Corrine Brown and Andrew Crenshaw. But in many respects, Anders aligned with me. He is on issue after issue, but he's been in the House since 2000. I believe that's long enough. All of these issues, like immigration, they've been burning since long before 2000. And Ander, they are still burning. How long does it take to stop the unlawful expansion of this feral government? How long does it take to secure the border? I mean, after English is the second language, is that long enough? I think it's time to give another candidate a chance, like, I don't know, Ryman Shove. And there's no guarantee that he's going to do any better, but Congressman Crenshaw, 14 years is a long time. A lot has happened, and although you say you're against the invasion, it happened, and it's happening on your watch. As for Corrine Brown, well, look, she's a progressive along with Nancy Pelosi. The progressive is by their ideology a domestic enemy. And if I could replace Corrine Brown, I'd replace her with Twilo or Glo Smith. Either of those women would do better than Corrine Brown. But look, all of these issues are because of the current occupants of the White House, the Senate, and the House. We're not going to survive as a nation if we send back the same incumbents. Throw the bums out with their abysmal results. And as far as I'm concerned, the Republicans are co-conspirators with the Democrats and hold some accountability for the mess we're in. Look, there's hope. There are people standing up. I mean, are you? You've got to vote against these bums, and it beats the alternatives. But enough of this depressing news. There is some lighter news out there. Like Joe Biden, who likes to swim naked. In other words, he's a skinny dipper. Vice President Joe Biden enjoys swimming without a bathing suit, a new book claims. Biden, who's flirting with a run for president in 2016, gives Secret Service agents an eyeful, both at his Delaware home and at the vice president's official residence in Washington, D.C., according to the First Family Detail by Ronald Kessler. Agents say that whether at the vice president's residence or at his home in Delaware, Biden has a habit of swimming in his pool nude. Kessler writes in the book, due for release August 5th. Female Secret Service agents find that offensive, he writes. I didn't know there were female Secret Service agents. But average Joe, sees no problem with it. He doesn't see the problem female Secret Service agents have with his indulgence. I mean, really, Joe? We do have a caller. I want to pull in, is it Mr. or Mrs. Rice? First name is Rice. Okay. Rice, how are you? Welcome to the Resistance.
Hey, Forrest. I wanted to compliment you. I do have a copy of the Dynamic Freedoms, our freedom documents, and I have, throughout the years, I've picked up several of those, and I've distributed them to youth groups I've spoken with, and even for Halloween, I'll put one of those in with a generous supply of candies.
It is an excellent book.
Trick-or-treaters. That's just, we got to be somewhat evangelistic about this. In his farewell address, there's a love of liberty with every ligament of our heart. So we just have, there's certain little things we can do for 4th of July, even though we had a small group here. We read portions, we had to go around, we read portions of the Declaration of Independence. And even if they, our constitutional rights, if, let's just say, God forbid, Second Amendment or First Amendment, they're working on that to abolish it, our rights come from God. And no one can enable, I didn't know what that word meant going to public school, but I had to find out as a homeschooling parent. Enable means these are things, freedoms given by God, and no one can take them away. So I appreciate you stating that the Constitution is the law of our land. It's, if we're for the Constitution, we're for government. We're not against government. We're for government, and it's the many groups, mostly Democrats, who are opposing the government. And I encourage people to look at our Constitution, look at our founding documents. And one thing I really like about this document, in the last page of it, there's a picture of the statue of George Washington, and he's praying. It has to go with religion and morality. Whatever you choose, as long as it's, pretty much light, love, and good, go for it.
Well, thank you for the call, and we will give callers a copy of that document. Now, we've got an election coming up. Who is your congressman, Rice? Oh, Rice, he cut off. Oh. Well, let me take another call. Jason, welcome to the Resistance.
Hey, Forrest, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing okay. Doing okay. I want to get your thoughts on an issue. I saw recently that the United Nations Human Rights Council condemned both the United States and Israel for not sharing their Iron Dome technology with Hamas. And
why would they? The Iron Dome is designed to protect against Hamas.
Amen. You know, some of our fellow Liberty, I say colleagues over in Europe with the UKIP elections recently, calling for a in-out vote for the EU. Maybe with this anti-Americanism being shown at the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, maybe we can get some of our Congress members to do an in-out vote for the UN. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. The UN probably needs to be, repatriated, say, to the Middle East. Then they can deal directly with the problems that Israel's dealing with.
Well, anyway, I didn't know if you had heard about it and just wanted to grab your thoughts on it.
Yes, thank you for the call. It's a ridiculous proposition that Hamas would need the Iron Dome. Really, I think the solution over there is to let Israel take out Hamas. And once they're gone, I think a lot of the problems will go away, at least in the Gaza Strip. But as far as the rest of the Middle East, look, the Islamic terror groups have already declared that they want to wipe Israel from the map. And that's that. But back to Joe Biden, apparently he likes to swim nude. You know, all this news is just, it really is depressing. But I did get a chuckle out of good old Joe showing it all to the female Secret Service agents, you know. I mean, he apparently likes to be revered as an average, everyday Joe, according to an unnamed agent that told Kessler in his book. But none of these agents want to go into detail because Biden makes agents' lives so tough. And I might add offensive. Anyone else would be charged with some sort of sexual harassment, but not average Joe. Swim naked, you mushy-headed old fool. I wonder if this will become a campaign issue when he runs for the presidency in 2016. But it's really creepy, isn't it? I can't imagine. How old is Joe? Is he in his mid-70s?
An old guy.
Late 70s? Yeah. Okay. He's running around shriveled up naked, swimming away in front of God and country. But anyways, back to these Democrats. This is just offensive. I mean, this is what they do. You know, the law does not apply to them, but it applies to us. And, you know, there's one final thought here I want to leave you with. You probably heard this. I think Margaret Thatcher said it. Socialism is fine until you run out of other people's money. Socialism isn't fine. And oh, by the way, we ran out of other people's money a long time ago. And we've spent about another $18 trillion that they put on your credit card, all to advance socialism in the federal government. You've been listening to The Resistance, AM 600. Forrest Wilson, your host. I look forward to talking with you next week.